and the webinar. And I'm sharing just briefly an introductory presentation. So you should see my screen now, right? Can you see it, right? Okay, perfect. Yes. So just to give a brief introduction on why we are organizing this webinar and which was the series. So basically, in imPURE, we have developed a series of webinars because we wanted to give hints and information on the activities that were being developed and the results that we have achieved now since we are reaching the end date of the project. The first webinar organized was on the product design and development of the imPURE critical medical supplies. The second webinar was dedicated to the fast-track modular mold development. The third one was organized last March and was on digitalization of injection molding lines for repurposing, and we have reached the final step, the last webinar that is being held today concerning the supply chain collaboration platform and the distribution of critical medical supplies. This is one of the results that we have achieved during the project activities implementation, and today you will hear three presentations concerning three different perspectives. But just to give some preliminary information, you can see here all the partners that are involved in the project activities. So the flow of the activities involved the starting point from the raw material supplies, metal powders and antimicrobial polymer master batch. And then with the development of the activities that you can see here, we are reaching a TRL 8, so the application. And then, of course, we have the platform that has developed within the Work Package 5, dealing with the supply chain collaboration platform that deals with the overall activity and the objectives of the distribution of the critical medical supplies that have been repurposed, as you can see in the scheme here. As just a reminder for the webinar today, you will hear a first presentation from Massimo Mare concerning the supply chain collaboration platform. The second one will be from Giorgio Slolas from Enki UA on COVID-19 lessons learned and the imPURE response. And the last one will be from Piero Camurati from SIDAM on medical sector market needs, the imPURE case. So as I said, you will have different perspectives on the activities developed, in particular concerning the critical medical supplies and the distribution of the products that have been developed. So we will hear three different perspectives. The first from the platform that have been developed, the second from a hospital perspective and experience, and the last one from the medical sector in relation to the market need. Just to give some information on who are the stakeholders that are here with us today. We have several registered external stakeholders that are interested in the development of the activities of the imPURE. So you can see here the list. We have Silter, Guarnimed SRL, 3D FIC SRL, ET Manufacturing, Kistler, Paul EMC2, Materdome, New Made Consulting Capacities, and then we have also several independent and sector consultants that are interested in gaining knowledge on the activities that we have been developing. So just to give a brief introduction to our participants on what we are going to hear today, and I will go directly to the first presentation that will be given from Massimo Marri. So if you would like to share your screen.
Yes, hi to all.
Perfect.
And you should see now my presentation, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we start from the a short overview about the Yungo infrastructure and how the platform is made and for what is used today. And Yungo, generally speaking, is a cloud platform that is able to connect customers and vendors and suppliers. We have some specific modules that can be activated in the platform for sending from the customers to the vendors, for example, purchase orders, RFQ, RFP, so request for purchase, declaration of origin, and some other documents. The main feature of the platform is that the vendor don't need to log in into a web portal with a username and with a password, and so they don't need to be trained by the customers, because the document that the platform sends to them is an active document, and that we call Yungo Mail here. That is patented technologies that can be used directly from the vendor to give back to the customer the information they need. So without having to log into the portal, they can answer directly using the document attached to the mail that they receive. And there's another technology inside the platform that is a sort of ADI connection that allows you that allows to the vendor to talk with the customer directly using an ADI data exchange instead of manually filling a form attached to the email. In the imPURE project, one of the goals for us was to help partners to find vendors that are providing specific goods for specific market classes and having also specific properties. So what we have done is starting analyzing the first, as a first step, which were the market classes that we had to involve in this step of the project. And we identified three types of market classes. One is the polymers, the second one is metals, and the third one is medical devices. And then for each market class, we have created three templates in an Excel format. And for these templates, we have chosen together which were the questions to be included in each template for each market class. And for each question, we have decided which were the possible answers that the supplier could fill in while answering to this survey. And for each answer, we decided which is the score of that answer. So, for example, if we have a supplier that is providing goods coming from China or from Australia, the score of this answer is different than a supplier that is providing goods maybe coming from Europe. Okay, and then so for each survey, for each market classes, we decided which was the minimum threshold that the supplier must achieve in order to be considered as qualified for us. During the analysis, we find some difference among the templates, so among the market classes. So obviously, different market classes have different questions and different possible answers. Also, the layout was different because for medical devices, for example, we decided to split the survey in three sections, one regarding the masks, one regarding the oximeters, and one for the vaccine spikes. Obviously, the market classes having different questions and different answers have different scores and different minimum and maximum threshold. But also, the scoring methodology was different because for medical devices, we decided to have a subjective type of scoring. So the partner has to manually fill which is, in its opinion, the score of that survey for that vendor. But for polymers, for example, the score of the survey was automatically calculated by the platform. So these are two different approaches to the same problem. And how it works, the platform. So the first thing to do, a partner has to do, is to create the supplier master data about the vendor that he wants to involve in the survey. So we have at least four data to be filled: the name, the email, the business ID, and the address. And then he can send a specific survey to the vendor that he has already created. So, for example, in this screenshot, we are sending the metals survey to the vendor, and this is what the vendor receives. So the vendor in its mailbox receives a standard email containing a form that is the one is shown in the screenshot, containing a survey that you can fill. The survey has some mandatory questions that are the one marked with the red star, some other optional questions, and for each questions, there can be different type of answers. So as you can see in the screenshot, there are some short text answer, some other answer with a text area, and other answer with a flag, so the supplier can have multiple choice in answering the questions. So the supplier has to fill all the questions, at least the mandatory ones that the partner is asking him. And once he has filled all the mandatory question, now the customer, so the partner, can see the answer of the vendor to that survey and ask the platform to verify automatically the questionnaire, so the survey and the answer filled by the vendor. Once done this, the partners have a dashboard in the platform, and they can see which are the vendor involved in the project, for which are the surveys sent to each vendor involved in the project, and for each survey they can see a little column with a background color that tells which is the state of that survey for that vendor. For example, if we have a yellow state, it means we have sent the survey to the supplier, but we didn't receive anything yet. The red one that are not present in the screenshot are the answered one, so by the vendor, and they need to be verified. The green one have already been verified, and they have passed the minimum threshold, so that supplier is qualified. The black one, like the second one in the screenshot, is not qualified because the answer filled by the supplier were not good for what we decided during the analysis. The last feature, I think maybe it's the most important one, is that each users inside the platform can search for any qualified or not qualified vendors, but you can search also inside the question. So in this example, the user is searching for qualified suppliers, because we are flagging here the green state for metals market class, but only the one providing at an MOQ between 20 and 50 kilograms. So in this way, the result is that there is just one supplier in this case that is providing that good with that features. The resulting data that Jungo shows is the list of the suppliers that are matching the search filters set by the users, and also the score that he has achieved in the survey that we have sent him. That's all. So I leave the floor to the other presenter.
Thank you very much, Massimo. Are there questions from the audience, from the participants? In case you can also write them in the chat, and then we can reply after the presentations from the other speakers. So Massimo, I think all is clear.
Okay.
Because I see no questions. Just a second. Yeah, I see no questions. So I would say that we can proceed with the presentation of Georgios. You can share your screen.
Yes, let me share my screen. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So I'm George Lolas, and actually I would like to thank Stefania and also the coordinator, Professor Charitidis, and his team of the National Technical University of Athens, that they gave us the chance to participate in this quite innovative and novel project. So I will present some of the lessons that we have learned through COVID-19 and some of the response, that we have through the imPURE project. So before I start, since it was a project that actually started through the pandemic and will finish within the pandemic, and actually also within a geopolitical, crisis in our neighborhood, we didn't have the chance to meet, in person. So let me introduce ourselves. We represent the third department of internal medicine and laboratory that we have 3 different clinics under our umbrella. It's a COVID clinic and pathology and an oncology unit. We belong to the National Kapodistria University of Athens, and the head is Professor Konstantinos Sirikos. We are situated in the Sotiria General Hospital, which is the reference hospital of COVID-19 in Greece, since it's focusing on lung disease, all the clinics and the whole hospital as well. So COVID-19, it's a big debate if it was a late lesson that we should have learned from early warnings, meaning that by the year 2020, it was a year of change. Why was that? Because years before, in 2007, there was a very nice publication that was stating that there are several SARS-CoV-like viruses that they could emerge either by laboratories or by animals. So the researchers, they should be prepared in case of a new pandemic. Unfortunately, we weren't. The first lesson that we have actually learned in the medical sector is the trust. What do I mean by trust? In order to have an effective pandemic response, we need to have trust between the health professionals and the lay public. This wasn't the case in the COVID-19 pandemic, and everybody realized that. But how everything started? Actually, everything started with the masks. If you go back in 2020, at the beginning of 2020, both in the United States and in the European Union, there were several officials that they were stating at the beginning, around February 2020, that there is no need to wear a mask. And actually, wearing a mask, it won't prevent you, the general public from catching coronavirus. But this wasn't the case. After a few weeks, and actually by the end of March, the officials changed their minds and they said that yes, we should wear a mask. But unfortunately, due to the short supply of the specific medical device, the thing that we didn't have enough masks, we should, save the masks for the caregivers and the health professionals. But we should have said the truth from the beginning. So the trust that it had to do between the health professionals and the lay public, it had to do with the supply chain. And what do I mean by that? The COVID-19, it was actually responsible for exposing, the deficiencies of the old supply chain that we used to have. The old supply chains and the industrial leaders was focusing on the just-in-time, supply chain, meaning that they were procuring, raw materials or components based on the, lowest cost possible, regardless of their point of origin. Actually, they didn't care a lot, regarding when, all these kind of components and materials would be delivered. Since more or less they could predict the time. However, everything has changed due to COVID-19. Why? Because we had a lot of pandemic shutdowns. We have labor shortages, even some weather problems. So, and this caused huge bottlenecks and, increasing the costs and disruptions in the so-called just-in-time, old-fashioned supply chain. So everybody was starting reconsidering what we should do and how we could change it. And the second lesson that we managed actually, I think so, to address even in the imPURE, and I will show how, it was the agility and speed, which is the new actually basis of differentiation. So we have to act fast. It's impossible to build new factories or to attempt product development with the old ways. So, and especially for the medical sector, that it's a high regulated sector, we need to act extremely fast and to be quite flexible. Even the regulatory bodies, they need to adapt the new challenges and they have to agile as well as evaluate risk differently and give authorization for products much more quickly. So in order to be, ready to go to market in days instead of months. So what was the response of the imPURE? Actually, the whole idea of the imPURE project was actually based on this agility as well as speed. So the partners, first of all, as far as I know, both the industrial as well as the academic, they are quite agile, quite flexible. We have critical partners inside the consortium that they could produce the necessary parts, for equipment. And also the general idea of repurposing and reorienting injection molding production lines in order to produce, products from concept to prototype to production within a few days instead of weeks, it was extremely novel and innovative. So, and focusing actually in the 4 products that we managed to produce throughout the imPURE project, I have to state that I have actually categorized them in 2 different categories. The ones that they have to adapt to common attributes, and these are the masks and the oximeters. I have to state that all the products that we have produced throughout the imPURE project, they have shortages throughout the pandemic. First, we will start with the masks. That if you remember, at the beginning of the first wave, we didn't have enough masks. So then we have a loss of trust between the health officials, and the general public. The imPURE response, it was, 2 different masks produced by Stilgoma and Producta. So in the second case is the oximeter. We have also shortages in oximeter in different months in different, for example, countries, even around the Europe or even around the globe. Why was that? Because a lot of people from the lay public, for example, they were buying oximeters in order to ease their anxiety. Also, it was as a result of the increasing number of homebound patients, especially in the final waves of the pandemic. We go to the second category of the products that they have been produced throughout the imPURE project, and it had to do with the vaccine spike and the ventilator splitter. I categorize them as the agile solutions. The first one, it had to do with the syringes, because we had a shortage of syringes, at least in the final stages of the wave, especially in the low and middle income countries, because some of the vaccines, they require different syringes, the so-called loaded volume syringes. That, a response to that, it was the vaccine spike that was produced by CDAM. So last but not least, it was the shortage in the ventilators that we had in different European countries at the beginning of the pandemic. I have to state that the ventilator splitter, it cannot be considered as a medical device and should be used only in critical conditions and under the approval of the hospital administration. So last but not least, one of the main lessons is the sustainable solution of the mask that we have been produced. I would like to state a few numbers here, because COVID-19 has a huge environmental fingerprint. Why? because during COVID-19, we have 7,200 tons of medical waste every day, most of them based due to disposable masks. Can you imagine, the world factories that were producing 52 billion disposable face masks, both surgical and N95 masks in 2020, and 1.6 of them, they ended up in the oceans. They need at least 450 years in order to be biodegraded. So, and you can imagine that one single N95 mask, it could contain a waste the same as a small plastic bottle. A very nice, paper by Chu et al. In 2021, they have done a very nice, research, and they have said that if a healthcare worker used an N95 mask for each patient that they were encountered, at least the first 6 months in the United States, region, they should require 7.5 billion masks. And the cost, it will be 6 billion euros. And of course, the waste, it was 84 million kilograms of waste. If, on the other hand, the N95 masks were reused by the health professionals after decontamination, etc., this will drop to 1.3 billion, euros, and we will have less, let's say, weight by almost less than 75% to 13 million, kilograms of waste. On the other hand, even these numbers could potentially be reduced even further with a reusable silicone mask, meaning that this could reduce the cost to 775 million euros and the waste to 1.6 million kilograms. So you can imagine that the mask that they have been produced throughout the imPURE project, it is a sustainable solution. So, and to have the final slide, to have a sneak peek in the imPURE project, in our personal opinion, the imPURE swift and agile actions, both taken by the industrial as well as the academic partners, are capable, if needed, to equip the healthcare workers with the right tools in order to fill the gap between the medical supply shortages in critical emerging conditions, and of course, to protect the public health. I will finish my presentation by, presenting some of the wording pillars that they have to do with the imPURE, and this is the agility, it is the time, the adaptation, the supply, the thrive, and of course the change in how we're thinking. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Georgios, for this very interesting presentation. I would like to ask to participants, in case have any question, to write them in the chat or post them now. I see, though, that at the moment we don't have any question, comment, but in case you have, you can also write in the chat so that we can read them. Thank you very much, Georgios, again. And I would like now to give the floor to our last speaker for this webinar, who is Piero Camurati from SIDAM, which is a company in the biomedical district here near Bologna. So, Piero, the floor is yours for the presentation.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Can you hear me? All right, perfect. So let me see if I can share a couple of slides. Is that, yes. Can you see everything?
Yes, Piero, we can. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So anyhow, we agreed to give a short overview on I would say, and as we will see in a moment, a very important topic as we speak, and I would say we have seen an impact already within the imPURE project, but is also currently a major issue in the industry. I mean, for medical device certainly, but not only for us. But medical device do have an additional challenge that we will see in a moment. But actually, I was also just reminding myself that I think it was probably 1 year ago, or maybe even more, somehow at the beginning of the project, at some point we said we should be careful because we will see an issue related to procurement of certain material. And unfortunately, this has been proven true. So, by the way, I also have, it came very timely because just last week or a couple of weeks ago, there has been a report on this subject that has been made by the Industrial Association here in Italy for medical devices that were surveying all the associates in order to find out what's coming up in this sector, and I share with you some of the numbers that has been presented here that are quite impressive because as you can see, of course, the first question was to find out within the time frame of the survey. So the survey was April 2021, April 2022. What has been the change in terms of cost related to the categories that you can see? And I mean, it's quite impressive. Of course, it needs to be considered that the impact on the end price of the product can change and can vary according to the type of product, to the type of industry. But the difference is extremely significant, and it is also something that we were not used to deal with in the past. We've been having a fairly stable situation for a good number of years. Now, in just 1 year, we saw that the cost of raw material procurement has been increased by 50%. Energy has been doubling. Transportation almost the same, and other services like finishing, like for example, in our sector, some activities from third parties that we need to finalize the product has been also increased by 63%. In reality, this is probably not even the real issue. The real issue is much more related to delays. And as you can see, there is basically a delay of 81% in the delivery of raw material. But I also have to say that in certain situations, the delivery never happens. And that's even more an issue, of course. And we will see why in a moment. The impact that has been caused by those delays in raw material into the delivery of the end products to the market has been 64%. But again, also in this case, I would say that in some case, the delivery delay is actually no delivery. Because if you don't have the raw material, you have no delivery of the end product. So it's this is an issue because, by the way, as you know, we're also talking about somehow regulated market that we are dealing with. And so the impact of those costs in many cases, or I would say in most of the cases, cannot even be transferred to the market, but need to be carried within the companies. And that's also an additional stress and additional burden that needs to be taken in consideration. So when I was saying before, in our own experience, we have seen material that were used to have, or what we were calling a long delivery time of 6 months. So you need to place the order 6 months before when you can expect the delivery for the quantity that you need. In those cases, we have seen this changing to 12, 18 months, and sometime, even after 18 months, you get told, sorry, it's going to come later. Or probably it's not going to come, or probably you just get a small quantity. And so we were saying, what is the impact of that? The impact is that different from any other industry, or at least most of other industry, you can't even find an alternative in this market. Why? Because the products are certified. And that means that every single change that you are going to make to the product in terms of composition, in terms of raw material that you are using, even in terms of just a little change in the cycle that you do, or that you can, or even that the vendor do in order to produce that material, are going to have an impact on the certification of the product, which is basically becoming invalid. So if you want to change something, you need to be ready to undergo a certification process, or at least what we call a change in the product, that if it's a small change, might take, as we see here, from 5 to 12 months. depending on what kind of change it is, where is, where that material is used in the product, the quantity, the type of, for example, of connection that there could be between the material and the patient and things like that. But there is even more a situation where you can't change at all, because there are situations where you need to classify the change as a significant change. And in that case, it means that if you want to do that change, you should undergo to the new regulation. So if you have a product that you are currently selling under the old regulation for medical device, the so-called MDD, fine, you can make this type of change without an impact in the certification, provided that you collect, all the documents, that you make the tests that are required, that you produce the technical information that are needed in order not to have an issue later on. But only if this is the so-called small change. If it would be a major change, you would need to recertify completely the product. And then in that case, instead of talking of 5 to 12 months, you could more likely talk about a much more significant amount of time, and by the way, also a significant cost. So all in all, the impact is that the current situation, apart the obvious impact which is having on costs and prices, is really having a probably more important impact in the fact that we see already, and we will see probably more in the upcoming months, delays or sometimes, complete shortage of delivery of also, life-saving device, simply because you can produce them. And that's certainly a significant challenge, considering also the scenario that we have seen before, because of course, apart from the other difficulties, there are still, the COVID is still on, and of course the health sector is still an important topic, in particular because there are now activities that are currently ramping up because they were not possible to be executed during the COVID. So there is a huge request of certain medical device, and there is a big challenge in delivering them. Just to add as a closing, but there is not yet let's say an evidence in terms of number, but I think the evidence is very clear if you ask everyone in the industry. The effect of the war which is taking place in Ukraine is an additional burden. For example, if you look into transportation was managed significantly by people that were coming from those countries, and so now there is another shortage over there. And of course, we see already an additional increase in prices for many things, also because certain supplies are closed, and then it's difficult, as we saw here, to find an alternative. So, unfortunately, this is something that we have to deal with, and it's very difficult because not only there is a market challenge, but there is also a regulation challenge, and those two things combined are certainly not helping. But that's it.
Thank you very much, Piero, for the presentation. Thank you very much. Do we have questions from our participants? any comment on the activities presented. Just keep in mind that this is the last webinar of the imPURE project, since it is ending next week, actually, the 31st May. Our project activities will end. Of course, we will still keep updated the website and our channels. The webinar will be uploaded in, of course, our website, but also our communication channels, so YouTube and the social media will have a redirect in order to get access to the activities and also the previous webinar. So you will find a series of webinar in our communication channels. So if participants have any questions, they can post them now. Let's see if there is any curiosity, any comment on what we have been developed, any suggestion, because of course we are open also to suggestions, since we have stakeholders registered that are actually working on the field. So in case we can also collect them via email, in case questions, comments will emerge later on. I see no questions for our speakers. Your presentations were completely clear. So I would say that I thank you very much for being here with us. The last webinars, as I said, have followed the activities of the projects, and this is the last one, since we are developing the collaboration platform for the supply chain. So some results have been presented. In case you can contact us if you would like to have any additional information. So I would say that I thank our speakers, our project partners, and we will keep updated the website with our latest results after the end of the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, and we'll keep updated. Have a nice day.